What's up, team? It's Jakob Gollon. Welcome to another episode of the Master Your Craft study. Our guest today is Jason Eaker. He's the head coach at Oklahoma Baptist University. He's a dear friend of mine. He's someone who I've always looked up to, or not always, but I should say in the last couple of years I've looked up to during my brief coaching career, because Jason was part of the 2014 NCAA tournament team that I played on at Mercer. He was an assistant at the time, and in the last couple of years he's helped Mercer have even more success. And just this past spring and summer, he's been announced as the new head coach at Oklahoma Baptist, which is actually a place that has some history for him. His father was a Hall of Famer there. So Jason's beyond excited to be in this position and have this opportunity. And I'm beyond excited that he took the time to sit down with me and share some of the deeply thoughtful and passionate wisdom that he approaches the game with every single day. So enough of me. Without further delay, here's my conversation with Jason Eaker. What's going on, team? Welcome to another episode of the Master Your Craft study. I'm here with Jason Eaker, head coach at Oklahoma Baptist University. Jason, say what's up to the folks.
Jake, good morning to you. Happy to be here.
It's weird calling you Jason by name. It's probably the first time that's happened. Full disclosure, Coach Jason Eaker actually coached me for a little while toward the end of my tenure at Mercer University as a basketball player. And he was an integral part in our run in the NCAA tournament because of his commitment to some of what we were about as a team, and adding his excitement, his energy, and his willingness to put in time really helped us to excel at that level. Well, I want to talk about that right away, Jason. What is it that you use to draw energy from? You're such an unbelievably, incredibly inspired or motivated individual when it comes to the game of basketball, when it comes to your craft. Where do you draw that energy from, and why is it that you feel like that?
Well, I've always seen a bigger purpose that laid out there of either what I was trying to pursue individually or us collectively. And so I think my energy comes from purpose. There's only been a couple pockets of time in the 15 or so years that I've been in coaching where I have woken up in the morning and not really seen purpose in front of me. And so I could unwrap purpose for each stop that I've been at, but I think you probably get the drift of that.
Where are you drawing the purpose from? Give me some good examples, just from one or two places.
Well, in this latest situation, being the head coach at Oklahoma Baptist, my former boss, who you played for and I worked for, Coach Hoffman, I signed with him out of high school at this school, Oklahoma Baptist, which is the same school that my dad won a national championship at in the 60s and has a long history and connection with that school. And then the athletic director that hired me, I worked with and have known for, 15 years. And so I was only able to be at this university for 1 year, and we had a coaching change, and then I ended up moving on to another school. And so when I think about team meetings, or I think about my day, I think about recruiting, I think about player development or players moving on and past us at OBU and playing professionally, all I see is purpose in my day as far as helping a school achieve that I have a lot of individual buy-in to. The people that I love have a lot of history and connection with. And on top of that, I only got to contribute for one year at this school. And so I also have that feeling of unfinished service, maybe would be the right word, or unfinished business, if you want to
you've
say
got
it more
to contribute.
Yeah. Well, there's that part of me that ever since I've been in basketball, different beginning, but the majority of us freshmen, we come in, we play, and really what we're doing is we're learning to the point to where sophomore through senior year is probably where we're going to see our biggest jumps and biggest gains. So I had that experience. I felt like my best years were ahead of me. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But all I see is purpose in front of me at this job. And then on top of that, being a Christian and wanting to always combine my faith with my passion of basketball, how can you not have purpose when you are working at a school that the entire reason for the school being in existence is to proclaim and spread the news of Christ. And so that's all that I have when I wake up in the morning at this place.
I would imagine that has to do with the gift to be in a scenario where you can provide that purpose or live with that purpose. You feel like you need to maximize that potential. What do you think your potential is, Jason, either for your personal career or for that team?
I'm going to give you more of a probably not as fun of an answer, but I don't really have from a potential standpoint, I'm not really a long-term potential driven mind. I have no idea what our potential is. I do know from a funding and scholarship and location and arena and people associated with the program financially, I do know that there's nothing holding us back. But what we are curious to see, a lot of people I think are curious to see within my little network of family and friends, is with those things not limiting Oklahoma Baptist. The only thing that can limit it as to national, a nationally recognized program at the Division II level is my own growth. And so I literally feel like every morning when I wake up, if I will grow. That's
definitely a very strong leadership quality. Other than just the fact that you're going to.
Jake, do you mind if I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah, please.
All right. I do agree with the mantra, the theme, the research, the people in our industry that say that it all starts with the head coach. I've heard so many people say that over the years. Don't necessarily agree with that or believe that in my heart.
Go into detail on that.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I think that the head coach can set the practice schedule. He can set the practice plan. He can decide where we're going to eat. He can decide the discipline. He can decide the schedule to a certain extent, depending on who will agree with you to play. But I feel like wholeheartedly the best players on the team combined with the strongest voices on your team, and you hope that they align, but they don't always align. I feel like everything ebbs and flows with them. And so I feel like the head coach is a part of that group of, you want your head coach to be one of your best players, if that makes sense, not on the court, but as far as character, leadership, work ethic. But I don't think that it begins and ends with the head coach. I don't believe that.
No, I definitely don't agree with the fact that it would begin and end. I guess and my personal belief is not necessarily the sentiment of the entire population of the sporting industry either, but I think personally that what holds true is that the head coach can set the tone as far as the practice schedule and how he approaches those scenarios.
I agree with where you're headed with that.
And then I really actually like what you just said. In my mind, I'm a very visual learner, and in my mind, what I just kind of mapped out was rather than the head coach being solely responsible for the outcomes of the team, it would seem like you're referring to there being some sort of leadership by committee. So maybe the head coach, maybe the most popular hip assistant coach, maybe the best player, and maybe the funniest, most social player on the team. And via that committee or via those most influential players in the game would be why and how the team ebbs and flows throughout the course of a season. Am I getting that right?
I would agree with you. I think the culture of your team is important, but I think the subcultures of your team, the undercurrent of your team, and that can be the worst players, that can be the walk-ons, that can be the trainer, that can be the managers, that can be the kid who's on scholarship, but no one really thinks that he's worthy of that. I think those subcultures of your team can also form a group, even though they don't ever view themselves as being in a group, and their influence on the mass of the team is huge as well. And I think both of us have had experience where those individuals are treated in a way where they're accountable, they're valued, they're pushed, they're challenged. And we've both had experiences. I'm guessing a little bit on your end, but I would I would say that you would agree with this, that those people drive the team too. And
Yeah.
as simple as it sounds, not dumb, but everyone on your team is not going to be every day what class they're in, what level they're at, what role they're in, what hot streak or lack of playing time, whatever the situation is. Not everyone's going to be at 100% all the time, but the better your team is the more towards 100% bought in, committed to the team, committed to where we want to go, which is winning, having character on and off the floor, academics, all the positive things. As close as you can get everyone to their 100%, the better your team's going to be. But how that manifests itself every day, I mean, those are moving targets, like literally minute to minute. And so as the leader, your goal is to empower everyone, to let everyone know and also understand that they all are leaders, and you're going to hold them accountable as if their value is the most important piece of value towards the team having success. And that's hard to do because you only have so much energy, time, voice, influence over individuals. Like, the one thing that's interesting to me is when I walk into a room as a student assistant, an assistant coach, a head coach, my only influence and value to that room and to each relationship has as much influence as that individual will allow me to have. And so I'm only as good as a leader, and the same with the titans in our business, the Hall of Fame coaches. I'm only as good in that room as the amount of influence as the talent in the room will allow me to have.
Correct. It would seem, and you're going into a lot of detail, and I'm glad that you are, that I think a lot of coaches don't often converse on, at least not publicly like this. How do you as a head coach, with all of that going on, and as complex as this is, because it truly is one of the most complex jobs that you can work. I've always said it. I think that a basketball or any sports coach, especially in a high profile sport, is playing the role of what a business would hire 17 different people for. How do you as a head coach try to manage that? What is your personal approach to trying to take on all of those different personalities and thoughts and create that shared vision?
People seek to sniff that out anyways, to figure out who you are. And so the first thing I try to do is I'm going to be myself and I'm going to trust myself. And the second thing I'm going to do is I want to figure out what it is that you want and how can I help you. And so maybe what you want is for our team to win. If you want our team to win, then this process will be really simple. I'm going to care about you, try to figure out how we can win. But the majority of the time, what we want as head coaches, assistant coaches, players, role players, walk-ons, trainers, all those people that are involved, athletic directors, what you want is not as simple as I want to win. And so I want to try to figure that out. I want to try to figure out a way to help you. And the only way that I can figure out how to help you is if I first wake up and know that today is not about me. And the days when I do that well is the days when I have a good day at work. The days when I don't have a good day at work and I have no influence are the days when I wake up and I don't give a rip about anyone that's around me, and I'm just worried about what it is that I want. And so when I'm purpose driven, as a really famous and useful book that a lot of us in the Christian community have read and used, called A Purpose-Driven Life. Whenever I wake up with purpose, determined to be myself and to trust myself, then I'm more apt to help someone else get to what it is that they want, even if it doesn't include us as a team winning 100% of the time. And then normally, the more times you do that with the more individuals you can do it with, the more successful your team or organization will be. So
that's fantastic.
Basically, if I can wake up and be unselfish with why I'm here, what I'm here for, the more I feel like I'll help the team. The times when you don't help the team as a leader or a player are the times when you wake up and you say, I don't trust the situation I'm in. I don't trust the people around me. and I'm going to try to get everything I can today for myself. And so as the leader, how can I create an environment that is trust and knocked out fear? And a way for me to do that is to wake up and be honest and help others get to what it is that they want and the purpose for why they're even there in that room.
Absolutely. Make it very clear and very simple. You mentioned something actually before we got on the show that alluded to that. You know, it would seem like effort and honesty are basically a really good way to start the day or to have as resolutions in the back of your mind on a day-to-day basis when you're approaching being a coach. What was it that you said about simplicity earlier as far as approaching your day?
I've had the good fortune, bad fortune, however you want to look at it, is I've been in contact, worked with, played for, I played for, 15 coaches in college. I played for over 7 or 8 coaches in high school. I've worked for or with over 30 plus coaches at the Division I level, depending on assistants and head coaches. And so as I've done a lot of observing, a lot of writing down or journaling of what I like and what I don't like over the years, is the worst coaches are the ones that don't care and they're the laziest. We feel like those are the worst people for an organization. And as I've moved forward in time, I don't agree with that anymore. What the worst coaches and the absolute, what's the word that I'm trying to use? The people that are worse for your organization are the ones that convolute or mix up or change up or try to recruit individuals within the organization of the team with their own messages and their own thoughts that don't fall in line with what the leader or what the team should be about. And so, yeah, the more messaging that we do within an organization as the leader, as you said, the head coach sets the tone, he sets the messaging, he sets the goals. But the more messaging you do every day, the more the main messaging gets lost and it becomes a different message every day. And so the worst people that you could ever hire, the worst people that you could ever associate with are not the lazy, are not the entitled, are not the I don't care people. The worst people that you could associate yourself with as an athlete are the people that constantly are messaging you in your mind. Because as Nick Saban says, it takes what it takes to be successful. And all of us coaches would agree with that. And it's true. And so if it takes what it takes to be successful, which is to have a good attitude, to outwork your competition, to get good at the basic skills of your sport, to, just the basic tenets of what you learn when you're 7 years old. So the more messaging that you do around that, the more your daily routine will get lost inside all of that messaging, because the majority of the time from 15 to 25, we're developing our own thoughts, we're developing our own philosophies, and especially in college, people are trying to find their identity, they're trying to figure out who they are. And so the more sidebars that you put them on, the more you're hurting that own individual, the more you're hurting the team, the more you're hurting the individual. And so the more simple you can keep the message, maybe you throw the message out in a different way, but you got to make sure that the messaging is the exact same, which is work hard, have a good attitude, show up the next day and do it again.
You can weaken the culture by having too many different varying or conflicting ideas about how things should be. And it can also cause confliction in the individuals. That's something that, like you just said, for players, and I know we actually have a pretty large portion of our audience is coaches. That's a really important thing, I think, to keep in mind. I'm no expert. I only coached for 3 years, but Jason's got more knowledge than I do on this. And making sure that your message is clear is so important, because an unclear message weakens the culture, and an unclear message is also how you limit abilities, I do believe. I think it's a really important comment that you made there, Jason. Let's talk about. Go ahead.
And the one thing that I'll add to that is that when you do what you do as a coach, as a skill development person, as an X and O coach, as a motivator, when you do what you do, all right, if you wake up in the morning and you make sure that you're yourself and you trust yourself, you don't have to spend the entire day explaining to those that are around you why it is that you do what you do. Let it be what it is. Because I don't need to explain to you as a player why I'm doing what I'm doing. I either create a trustful relationship with you or not, and you either are able to be influenced by me or not. And then it is what it is. A lot of coaches spend the majority of their time doing something and then explaining to everyone around them why they're doing what they're doing and why it makes sense and why that it should be something that's followed. People are either going to follow you or they're not. And the majority of the time, the reason why they'll follow you or not follow you is, are you honest? Do they believe you? And how is this going to help them? And so a lot of times these coaches, so many coaches want to explain to everyone with their messaging. So they lay out the message. This is what we're doing. All right. And instead of letting that speak for itself and then go to work on that, they spend all this time and energy around this recruitment of why this messaging is correct, instead of spending that time developing a relationship that's built on trust and developing a routine where we're so committed to what we have to do every day, because the competition is out working. Wherever you are, competition is hovering around you, and they're working and they're talented and they may be more together longer than you. And so you don't have time to recruit to your messaging. And so the people that do that lose.
Right. They spin their wheels. It muddies the waters. We're going to change subjects just a little bit here, Jason. And you can go as deep into something, any specific subject or scenario, story, or even just in brief detail. But I want you to speak a little bit about adversity. And it could be as a player, it could be in your coaching career. Speak about a dark or bleak time in your career that you faced some adversity, and how grave it was and what it was that got you through it.
I think a lot of coaches would agree with this, is that I don't really see any portion of my career in coaching or playing that wasn't adversity. I feel like it all was adversity. And I see only that.
Adversity on tap.
Yeah, maybe a few days when I was, got a job at Liberty University, or I came to Mercer University, or I was named the head coach at Oklahoma Baptist. Maybe on those 12 hours or 10 hours on those specific days, it wasn't adversity, but every day is adversity. I think your original question was, how did I get through that? I think the best way to get through any adversity is to not quit. And so I know that sounds silly to say, and adults, us adults normally want something sexier or trickier or more detailed, but I think the key to all the adversity that I've faced personally and with my career is the fact that I've kept going, and I've had different people in my life, older coaches, older family members, friends, is that if I can just not quit and just wake up and put in another good day, no matter how I feel, that I have a chance of getting through that adversity. I think time and good days stacked together normally lead to you overcoming anything. But there are certain adversities that define us and stay with us, and we don't ever necessarily get over or get through, but we get better from. And so
they become a part of you.
Yeah, it becomes a part of your purpose. I would say that the biggest adversity that I faced before I got into college coaching is I played high school basketball for a legendary coach in the state of Oklahoma. I woke up when I was 6 years old, 8 years old, 12 years old, and there was this coach in this community. His name was Clester Harrington, and everyone in town knew that he was the coach. And so we used to go to the games as kids, and we used to think about those of us in the community that liked basketball, we used to think, man, if I could only get good enough to play for Coach Harrington and the Bulldogs. So I always woke up, even though I didn't realize it at the time, had a 2-parent home, I had a stable household. I went to church. I went to the same school. I played for the same coach. I always had the same high school coach. And so everything in my life was stable. I didn't know divorce. I didn't know true adversity in any sense of the word until I got to college and got intertwined into college basketball. I was at Oklahoma Baptist for a few months, and Coach Hoffman, who we both know, he walked into the locker room and resigned. He got a Division I head coaching job. And from that point forward, I had 3 or 4 coaches my freshman year. There was transition. I ended up at another school. There was another coaching change at the other school I was at. I would say all of that completely screwed me up, as confused me, and was the first real adversity that I faced, even though it sounds silly now being in college coaching, because that's just a part of the business. But I would say that's the first adversity where, you know, people were coming and going. I was the last person on their mind as to what I wanted to achieve or wanted to be. And so just going through a situation where I was not at the front of the line, I wasn't special like I probably thought I was at the time, because of the way that I grew up and the people that cared about me in and around me, is I was always a kid that felt like they were special or entitled to other people caring about what it is that I wanted in the game of basketball. And so going through all of that, I had to learn the principle of not quitting. And so that was a very hard concept for me to grasp. A lot of kids are way ahead of me in that way because they face real adversity in their lives as young people, whether their home is not a perfect scenario, or their community, or they change schools, or I don't know. There's chaos that goes on every day in our world.
Everyone's got their story and their reasons, and especially in the game of basketball. And I've actually done some writing about this. I think it's largely to do with access to the game. My family, full disclosure, wasn't very well off financially growing up, but it was much easier to get a basketball and walk down to the court than it was to get a pair of hockey skates and a stick and gloves and a helmet. And so because of that, I think there are a lot of underprivileged people in underprivileged communities that can get involved in the game. And so you wind up seeing a lot of people in the game of basketball that have dealt with adversity at a pretty high level before they get very far into the game, and probably have developed that don't quit mindset. And I think overall that probably contributes to the awe-inspiring celebrity that is the game of basketball, because you see a lot of people that come from, and this is rare, it's not like this in every sport, but you see a lot of people that come from underprivileged communities and societies that have tremendously more success the people who do. And a lot of it is because they learn that never quit, that fighting mentality early on in their career. Let's actually talk about that a little bit. So give me some examples, whether they be players or coaches, people who might have had a never quit attitude. Throw some names out there, and why are they important to your development?
Well, the first example that I would probably give is probably a more recognizable name and a more, maybe something that people could identify with, is Stephen Curry was a junior at Davidson when he was lighting the world on fire in college basketball, when he had that great run with Coach McKillop. I think all those in the basketball community will remember kind of his rise within the households and people showing his family and all of that. Would you agree with that everyone could identify with him?
I think most people know who Steph Curry is and a little bit about his story. Maybe not that much, but
yeah, well, in a short story kind of way, before he was with the Golden State Warriors, he went to a smaller school and he did amazing. And all of us in the basketball community, they went far in the NCAA tournament. And so that's where we all were introduced to him. I'm assuming that the majority of us know his story a little bit. Well,
yeah, absolutely. He was the underdog.
And his young brother is a kid by the name of Seth Curry. And so his brother was rising. He was, a few years younger than him. And when me and my boss Richie McKay showed up to his gym. He was going into he had just finished his junior year at Charlotte Christian, and we went to just begin recruiting him. And so we walked into his gym. I actually took Coach McKay to Charlotte Christian to watch another young man play that wasn't even him. So we didn't even step foot in that gym that day because of Steph's little brother. So we watched him play for, 10 minutes. And I was watching the other kid, and my boss was like, "That's the kid that I want right there. I think that kid is amazing." And I kind of double taked, and I didn't necessarily agree with him at the time that he was going to be an amazing player. But my boss, as a college assistant, you do whatever it is that the head coach wants as far as recruiting goes. You may have your opinion, but they have the final say into who you offer or don't offer or want. And so the one thing, long story short, we ended up recruiting, signing, and getting an opportunity to coach Stephen Curry's younger brother, Seth Curry. He played for us at Liberty University for 1 year. He averaged 20 points a game as a freshman. He led all freshmen in scoring at the Division I level. And then after the year, him and his dad came in and broke our hearts, and he transferred to Duke, had a good career at Duke, fought through injuries, and now he's went through the D League, and now he's playing in the NBA. He plays for the Dallas Mavericks. The one thing that I'll never forget about Seth Curry, all right, his dad played in the NBA. His brother is the MVP of the world, and he was headed on that track even when he was at Davidson. Everyone can remember that there was kind of a glow around the family, around Steph, around the rise of this kid. All of us, the country, was all rooting for him. But the one thing that I'll always remember about Seth Curry and getting to know him, talking to him on the phone, recruiting him, beginning to believe in him as a player, is that no one could have ever told Seth at that age. No one was recruiting him but a few of us schools. I'm sure that he had another offer, possibly other than Liberty University, but if there was, there wasn't a long line of them. Certainly, there was just a few low major schools, but no one could have told Seth Curry at that age, at that level of non-recruitment, at that level where an assistant coach at Liberty University, who was me, was even wondering why we were recruiting him. No one could have told Seth Curry at that age that he wasn't going to be good enough to play in the NBA. And he wasn't that good. And so the thing that I remember about that, and the thing that I respect about Seth, and the thing that I admire about him, is that he was determined at his age, and I guarantee you this came from his parents and came from his own gifts that the Lord had given him, is that he had determined long before that I entered into his life that he was really good. And even when those recruiters, those of us that didn't agree with him, whether we said this to him or not, is he thought that he was really good. And he was just like, when is the rest of the world going to catch on and understand that I'm an unbelievable player? And so that's one, probably a
trust yourself and be yourself. That's a Jason Eaker daily resolution. Trust yourself and be yourself. Yeah. And you think Seth embodied that pretty well.
Yeah, he embodied that even when he wasn't any good. And I don't know if Seth would argue with me about that. I'm sure that he would definitely, and he exhibited the same trait. I knew his coach in the D League. And so his coach in the D League said the same thing about him. He eventually met with Seth and said, Seth, you're going to one day be in the NBA. You just got to keep putting in good days, keep producing down here in the D League. And one of these NBA teams is going to do more for you than give you a 10-day contract. And so even in the D League, when his brother's setting the world on fire with the Warriors, there's probably people in the D League that were probably like the only reason why this kid's in the D League is because his brother and his dad played in the league. And Seth woke up every day, and Seth's like, I don't know why all these general managers haven't signed me yet. And so he obviously has talent and he's good. But before any of that got exhibited, his adversity to him was just everyone else figuring out how good he was in his own mind.
Yeah.
And so I think
it was a personal challenge for him.
Yeah. I think all of the kids that walk around, and we see it all the time in camps now, and we laugh about it as coaches, or I'm sure you laugh about it, is that, Steph Curry has turned into such an example, such a beacon of hope, such a positive influence on so many kids, because everyone knows that they can't be Jordan. Everyone knows that they can't be Shaq. Even a 7-year-old knows that he can't be a LeBron. But you can't really talk a 7-year-old out of thinking that he can't one day be Steph Curry.
Absolutely. It's very real. It's very real.
Yeah.
The size and athleticism is very achievable.
Yeah. What I'd like to talk about, though, is that Steph is so unbelievable that kids can't be him either. But the real example, the example that kids really could be, is Seth. Because Seth was none of that. Seth's game is completely different than Steph's. But the thing that he has exhibited on a much smaller scale as, LeBron and his brother Steph, is that he's exhibited the characteristic trait of believing in himself, being himself, and not quitting. And so his example to me is much stronger to the players that I coach, the players that I recruit, the kids that come to our camp. That's a much more greater story that we can grab a hold of than Steph rolling around in front of 50 million people shooting it off the dribble from 40 feet. I mean, we can't do that, Jay.
Speak for yourself. Oh my gosh. That's really good. Is Seth the best player you've ever coached? And I don't just mean talent-wise. I mean all things considered.
The best player that I've ever been around, the best player that I've ever coached was a guy by the name of Langston Hall. Played at Mercer for us, was your teammate, was a point guard there for 4 years. He is by far and away the best player that I've ever been around, the best leader. I mean, Seth's in the NBA, and I'm hyped for him. Langston is not, but this is a podcast with I get to have my own opinion. And so my
Langston
opinion
will be on the show a couple episodes after you, actually.
Yeah, he's the best player by far that I've ever been around, that I've ever talked to, that I've ever coached, that I've ever been on the floor with. So that's my answer to that. Yeah.
The audience will hear more directly from Langston not too long from now. He had just returned home from Europe, and he's going to be jumping on the show with me here pretty soon. That one's going to be an emotional one for me. Obviously, Langston and I spent 4 years together playing in college, and Coach Eaker over here got a chance to help us along our journey on the last couple of years of that. Really interesting to see that, even a guy, when you can point to an NBA player currently, and to hear that there are other people and other players that have as much or more of an impact on you as a coach and hold a place in your heart like that, pretty powerful. What about coaches? Let's keep it on an NBA scale. Who's your favorite NBA coach? And give me a 10-second version of why they're your favorite NBA coach.
Well, my favorite NBA coach, there's several, so many of them that I admire. My favorite, the one that I study the most, the one that I've read everything there is to read on, is the Miami Heat's coach, Erik Spoelstra. He's he's kind of like that guy that I've always had in my notebook or my room, as far as I would love to sit down and talk to for an hour. And the thing that the big reason why is obviously LeBron went to Miami and they won 2 out of 4 NBA championships. But my affinity in following Coach Spo is my original favorite coach when I was a kid, when I kind of knew that my path was going to include coaching, is Pat Riley was always the guy. He was the coach that I knew about and liked the most. He wrote this book called The Winner Within a long time ago. It was one of the first coaching books that I ever got my hands on. It was called The Winner Within by Pat Riley, a life plan for team players. And it just went on to talk about being a success. And that was kind of before the trend of coaches writing books. Coach Riley was one of the first ones. And so in following him, you obviously begin to notice and hear about and listen to what Coach Riley would say about Coach Spo. And Coach Spo started in the video room, worked his way up from being a video coordinator to a part-time coach to a skill development coach to an assistant coach. And then Coach Riley ended up becoming the president of that organization, the Heat. And then he ended up hiring him as his successor with the Miami Heat. And so the job that he did before LeBron got there and the job that Coach Spo has done after LeBron has left is the reason why everyone in the coaching business has the respect that they do for Coach Spo. Did he do a good job with LeBron and D Wade and Bosh and all those guys? And did he show his mettle in all those high pressure moments as we saw through the playoffs these last few years? Coaching LeBron is an unbelievable privilege, but it's also a tough job, because if LeBron wins, LeBron did it. If Jordan wins, Jordan did it. And if Jordan or LeBron lose, it's normally the coach's fault. And so Coach Spo showed his mettle through all of that. He showed who he was for the world to see. But the world of basketball, there's so much to be admired about him, deeper than just his ability to run a practice or have a good side OBs or baseline OBs or late clock plays. He is great at that, and I plan on continuing to steal from him and his ideas from just a basketball X and O standpoint, but just knowing about his life, listening to the way that he communicates. And, the biggest thing that Coach Spo has always had, and I don't know him personally, there is a man that I worked with that knows him very well and can speak to this more so than I with firsthand experience, is that even when he's interviewed in print or in video or winning the championship, he's always had this level of humility that is rare when success comes in sport. But if I could be another coach, I wish that I was him.
What about a coach or a figure in another sport? Is there a singular name that sticks out that's not just because of the basketball orientation, but because of their character or leadership qualities? If you were flipping through the channels and you saw them speaking or them performing, that it would be a must stop and must listen?
I mean, my favorite coach of all time, the guy who I've listened to everything that he said or has been written or he's been on TV, is John Gruden, is my favorite coach.
Gotcha.
And the guy that I'll never get a chance to meet Coach Gruden, but
Why not?
He's the guy that
I'll have you on the show when he comes on the Master Your Craft study. I'll make sure that you get to co-host it with me.
All right, but him and Coach Parcells are probably the two guys that I look up to the most.
Let me shift gears just slightly here, but I think talking about Coach Gruden might almost transition us into this, because this is a word I'd use to describe him. Everyone who comes on the show has to give a brief comment on their thoughts about this word, and you can talk about an experience, a story, you can talk about your definition of it, but ultimately, especially as a coach, I want to know how you coach this, and that word is grit.
How I have coached and will coach grit? Is that your question, Jake?
Yeah, identify it. How is it that it comes about in players or in coaches? How do you develop it? how do you teach it to people, and or just a general definition of what you think it is, or even a story. If you can think of a specific story of a very gritty play or a very gritty person, go ahead and paint that picture for us.
The first, I think the first tenet or the first lesson as far as getting grit into your team, teaching grit, is that very early on in your journey as a team, like we'll start late August will be the first time that our full team at Oklahoma Baptist gets there. So everyone will get there. I'm planning on everyone being really excited and motivated and hopeful for the year when we have our first team meeting. The majority of team meetings at the beginning of the year, or a lot of Division I programs that'll be in the summer, there's a lot of excitement in the air. That first night, that first meeting, that first pickup game. I think one of the most important characteristic traits of a coach is when that has worn off and you go through a day very early on, that is not a good day. The team is sluggish. People don't want to be there. People are unmotivated. Guys on the team are tired. You may have family stuff going on as a coach or an assistant coach. Is for those days to be the days where you have the most energy, the most buy-in, the most, committed to what it is that you want your team to be. For you as the coach to be your most excited, your most hopeful, your most, your most readiness on those days. I feel like that process that exists amongst all teams at every level, no matter the sport, no matter the level of money we're making or not making, walk-on or scholarship, D1, D2, I think those days are when the coach can demonstrate what grit really is. And you never have to define it or say it or explain it, but those are the days that you really instill in your team that even though everyone is not excited today, we are going to work and put in a day as if all of you guys were excited. And if you don't want to put in that day, then you are not going to be on our team.
That's the culture.
Yeah, I think that is the beginning of grit. And then as you move forward, the very simple things that you do are you give feedback. Whenever you have someone off the court with their classes, on the court with strength and conditioning, an individual workout, whenever you see toughness and grit, as me as the coach and the way that I coach, I combine those two. I see those as the same, as toughness and grit and hard work. And I see all of that blended into the same thing. Mm-hmm. Whenever you see it, whenever you recognize it, you point it out, you reward it, you proclaim it, you shout about it, you celebrate it. And so that's an everyday thing. So like if someone gets to practice on time and it was pouring down rain and there was a tornado swirling around Shawnee, but they're there 30 minutes early, stretched and ready to go, whether their car broke down or whether they have something going on with their personal life, any small thing, I'm going to grab a hold of that and I'm going to celebrate it. I'm going to reward it. I'm going to cheer for it in a very loud and obnoxious way. So we are instilling that characteristic trait in our team. And then the ultimate in promoting and having a team that has grit are when it comes down to the choices of who you get to play. And now that I'm in charge of playing time and I'm in charge of the substitutions, is that grit will be a very easy thing for my team to be identified, our team to be identified with, because those are the people that I am going to play. And so if you do not have toughness, if you do not have grit, then you are not going to participate in the games when the crowds are there and the refs are there and we have the bleachers out and the scoreboards up and the media there. You will not participate. And so you will either acquire that trait or you will not participate. And so I think it's a very easy thing to instill as long as you're willing to attach the ultimate value to most players, and that's playing time.
So grit will be one of those, what's the word you kept using? Messages. You'll be sending the grit message pretty consistently, if I'm understanding that correctly. The bench is a great motivator.
Right.
We only have one or two. We only have time for one or two more questions here, Jason. And this one's going to be a bit of a quick hitter. Go into some brief detail on it if you'd like, on each one and why. What sort of media, whether it be books, TV, movies, documentaries, music, albums, what sort of media and access to information has changed your life for the better?
Well, in today's world, the thing that I didn't get to experience as a young person, but the biggest advocate for me and my growth is just simple YouTube, because on YouTube I can pull up sermons that I want to listen to. I can pull up praise and worship music, and then the other thing that I love to watch before I go to bed almost every night is I'll watch a documentary of an athlete or a coach. A lot of times it might be football, sometimes it might be basketball, but I'll watch that before, as I'm winding down the night pretty late trying to go to sleep. And so I would say something as simple as the internet and YouTube has been kind of the media. YouTube, you can find basketball drills, you can find motivational videos, you can find interviews. The internet, although it has its, it definitely has some bad stuff attached to it. I would have loved to have grown up with all that at my fingertips, where I could see it. If you wanted a ball handling drill when I was growing up, you had to go to a camp and buy that coach's tapes, or find a magazine and talk your parents into spending the $25 to buy a VHS tape. And so I would say the media that I'm consumed with is YouTube. I love searching on there for documentaries, and then sermons, and then different motivational things, whether it be a music video or a Kevin Garnett speech to the Celtics team or whatnot. So I would say that would be mine.
Awesome. What are 3 qualities that you would say make special players? And when I say special players, I mean the 2 or 3 times in a coaching career kind of players, the Langston Halls, the Seth Currys. When you look at those players, give me 3 qualities that they have that not every player typically has. What makes them uncommon?
Well, talent would jump out first. Availability. And when I mean availability, I mean their lifestyle, their life, their family's support of that lifestyle. Not only their availability, but the availability of a routine to exist around them, whether it be they're out of college where they have 24-hour access to a gym and a basketball and, athletic gear to work out in. I would say talent, availability, and then a commitment to the process of what it is for them to get better.
Talent, availability, and commitment to the process.
Yeah, I would say that obviously it's a very simple, catchy phrase to use, but those players, I've tried to explain this to a few of our players at Oklahoma Baptist in the last few months, is that there's a lot of players out there that are always looking for the great pickup game, that are looking for the great workout, that are looking for fun on a Friday night at a party, are looking for alcohol, are looking for comfort, whatever the case may be. But the really set apart players, and I'd be surprised if this wasn't true of those that are unbelievable in the NBA who I do not know, is that their commitment combined with their availability to an everyday routine, even when it's not in the season, I would say that that's what has set those apart that I've been around, that have gone to levels and performed in unbelievable pressure situations. And that includes going through failure. That includes going through injury. That includes having to go to a different school, or their family moving, or a gym being under construction, or the floor being redone in the summer. I would include all of those, even though some of those examples sound trivial and simple. The guys that I've been around that are set apart are the guys that are available every day, and inside the area of availability means that they avoid injury, and sometimes that's not even under their control. Is they're available to train every day, and then they're committed to train every day. And so those are two completely different things, because the majority of us may have a good Monday, may have a good Tuesday, but then as Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday hit, we're kind of looking forward to the weekend. We're looking forward to the next thing. And that self-discipline of an everyday routine gets lost. And then
well, your routine will be formulated based on your priorities. And very few people, even if they say that it's the case, really truly have that pursuit of excellence in that specific craft, if you will, here, basketball. Very few people actually have being the best basketball player that they can be as their absolute number one priority. And if you do, the actions and the attitudes will follow, but not everyone has that.
No, and they don't. And what is interesting about that, and what I try to explain to all the kids that we recruit over the years, is that I'm looking for people like that. And so some of the neatest people that I've ever met, some of the young people that I've admired the most, I've absolutely 100% not wanted them on my team, because they're multi-dimensional. Their interests and their minds are curious, and they have academic and social, spiritual, financial. They have all of these things going on in their life, and they're balanced, and they want to work a job, and they want to learn about this subject, and they want to play basketball really well, and they want to have a good relationships off the court, and they have value appropriately placed in a lot of different areas. And sadly, people like that, it's much harder for those people to excel in something as trivial and simple and unimportant on a big life scale as something like a sport of basketball. And so I want people that are shallow in a sense of they don't have a lot of interest other than a few things: family, God, sport, and it's right there all together, and they have goals inside of that individual sport, which my sport is basketball. And so it is kind of a shallow life, but the way that I view it is the people that really get involved in a sport at that level of commitment, where it's kind of why they do and what they do and kind of where they're headed type mindset. That's kind of their purpose when they wake up in the morning. Inside of that commitment, there's a lot of details that you can learn about the other parts of life. And so those are the people that I want on my team.
Laser
because
focused.
I just feel like laser focused on commitment towards that. And so I'm a basketball coach, so I want our team to be the best that we can be at what it is we do, which is basketball. And so that can be kind of shallow at times.
Yeah, understandably so, but I think that's always the case. I mean, this is one of those existential questions that you could philosophically go on forever and ever. But I believe it was in a TV show, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was someone posed a question about the main heroic character, and they said some men or some people were meant to be happy and some were meant to be great. And it really kind of poses that question of, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a life of balance, or there's absolutely nothing wrong with pursuits in several directions that may or may not be satisfying a need for a curious itch in so many different ways. But the fact remains that you really don't see any sort of truly great people succeeding at multiple things. It's almost always a very narrowly focused mindset and a very simple approach to trying to be good at their singular craft. And that is almost universally true in every field. You know, you don't see many farmers who are also working on Wall Street and trying to be the best at both. And if they are most likely not going to be the best at either. This is something that I think is really important for any players that have been listening to Jason, not just coaches, but for players that are graduating. If you're not going to be pursuing a professional career, that singular commitment, or that commitment to the sport, that narrow focus, that laser focus, is one of the most important attributes that you will have to carry with you into your career. What's important is that you're laser focused on trying to do the best that you can at that craft. And as Coach Eaker just said, you will find meaning and you will find purpose, or you will learn a lot about life and in other areas of life through that pursuit. Coach Eaker, we have one more question that everyone has to answer. You have to provide the waking thought to every person on the planet. You get to be the first voice that people hear when they wake up in the morning. You have to send a short message to them, trying to tell them what they should do and how they should approach their day. What would you say? Ready, go.
It's not about you.
Boom. That's really excellent. Coach Eaker, little by little, right? Drip by drip. We'll keep working. I know that our audience here, as listening to you speak on a lot of these subjects, I think they'll all be a little bit better for tomorrow, and hopefully they can spread that message as well. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and Coach, I'm really, really excited. I have a tremendous amount of joy for you, knowing that you've had the opportunity and you've taken advantage of the opportunity in your last few years of coaching, and now you get to be at the helm to be the one that has the responsibility of waking up to control that attitude, or to bring the juice every single day. I watched you do it for a couple of years as an assistant, and I'm excited that you now have your own team to do that with. And I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day to come on and share your wisdom with the people listening to the Master Your Craft study.
Jake, thanks for having me on, and we will definitely talk again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was nice to catch up. All right, Coach, we'll talk to you later. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Master Your Craft study. If you want to get a little bit more or check out some of the episodes that you missed, head on over to the MYCstudy.com for links to the podcast, links to the blog posts, all that jazz. If you have someone that you think would be good for the show, go ahead, hit us up, let us know. And in the meantime, thank you also to those of you that have been sharing our blog posts and spreading the word about our podcast. This is something that I think can be truly impactful for a lot of different players and coaches. And the more that we can spread the word, the more that we can try to beat the algorithm and get the Master Your Craft study on the top Google searches rather than videos of cats and Donald Trump. I would much prefer to be putting out some information that can make people a little bit less crazy and a little bit more committed to their craft. So thank you so much for listening. If there's any questions that you have, make sure you hit me up, my private accounts or any of the MYC socials, which are at the MYC study. I look forward to holding another episode here soon. Take care, guys.